The soft rustle of pages was the only sound disturbing the solemn silence of the old city library. Anna Petrova, 25, a librarian with eyes the color of weary heather and an almost invisible shadow of anxiety beneath them, sorted returned books. The air smelled of aged paper and wood polish. Suddenly, the heavy oak door creaked open, letting in a gust of cold November wind in him. He was a man in his mid-50s, dressed in an impeccable dark coat that likely cost more than Anna earned in a year. His gray hair was neatly combed back, and his face bore the imprint not just of wealth, but of a profound, almost pained detachment. He wasn't a regular. Anna knew most of them. This man drew gazes like a magnet, not deliberately, but by his very essence. He walked towards the shelves holding rare editions, his movements smooth, yet betraying a hidden heaviness. Anna watched stealthily as his long, aristocratic fingers slid along the spines of books, then paused at his neck, where something glinted beneath the collar of his shirt. A fleeting movement, but Anna's heart stumbled. A locket, old, silver, with some complex, almost time-of-face pattern. She looked away, feeling awkward like a spying child. Why had that detail snagged her attention so sharply? Why did the mere sight of this stranger send a chill down her spine, unrelated to the intruding wind? He selected a hefty tome on local history and approached the counter. His gray eyes, cold as a winter sky, met hers for a moment. They held such depth and such emptiness that Anna felt uneasy. He silently held out the book. As Anna processed the checkout card, her gaze fell again on his neck. The locket swung slightly. Exactly the same. No, it couldn't be. Exactly the same locket belonged to her mother. The only valuable thing, a memory of the father Anna had never known. Her mother had said an identical one remained with him. Her mother had died 5 years ago, taking all secrets with her and the locket. Anna had been forced upon it a year ago when her younger brother, Misha, desperately needed money for rehabilitation after an accident. And now this stranger, this ghost from another world, stood before her with a copy of her family heirloom around his neck. A coincidence? Too unbelievable. Too painful. Anna slept poorly that night. The image of the stranger and his locket haunted her. She tossed and turned in her old bed in their tiny 2-room apartment on the outskirts of the city, with a wallpaper bubbled with damp and the wind howled outside. In the next room, Misha breathed softly. He was only 16, and since that terrible accident, he walked with great difficulty. Doctors said intensive, expensive rehabilitation could get him back on his feet, give him back a chance at a normal life, at his dream of becoming an architect. But where could they get that kind of money? Anna's librarian's salary barely covered rent and food. She took on any side job she could find, translations, writing student papers late at night, even trying to sell her watercolor sketches of the old town, but it was all just drops in the ocean. The debt for Misha's treatment grew, and with it, her desperation. Her mother's locket. She remembered its warmth in her palm, the intricate swirling pattern she loved tracing with her finger as a child. Her mother rarely spoke about her father, only that he was an artist, that they had loved each other madly, but were separated by circumstances tragic and irreversible. "He doesn't know about you, Annie." Her mother would sometimes whisper, tears in her eyes. It had to be this way. The lockets were their symbol, their secret bond. 2 identical ones, commissioned from an old jeweler. And now, the stranger in the library. Maybe he was a collector, bought the locket at auction, or from the same pawnbroker Anna had given hers to. Thoughts raced, stung, giving her no peace. The next day, he came again. He sat at a table by the window with the same volume of local history and stared out at the snow-dusted street for a long time. Then he approached the counter to return the book and, after a slight hesitation, asked in a low, steady voice, "Excuse me, miss, could you tell me where the studio of the artist Igor Samov used to be located?" Anna's breath caught. Igor Samov. That was her father's name, the man she knew only from a couple of faded photographs and her mother's hushed tones. Her heart hammered so loudly it felt as though the entire reading room could hear it. Anna forced herself to speak evenly, though her voice trembled betrayingly. His studio, it burned down many years ago. Along with the house, she managed, her eyes fixed on the stranger's face. She saw his lips quiver, saw the gray steel of his eyes cloud over with a mist of pain for an instant. He swayed slightly, as if struck. Burned down, he repeated in a whisper. And the residents? Did anyone survive? He looked at her with such desperate hope that Anna felt a pang of pity mixed with rising anger and fear. They said everyone perished, she answered quietly, repeating the legend she'd known since childhood, the one that always shrouded the mystery of her birth and her father's disappearance. My mother, she lived nearby. She told me. The man closed his eyes, his face turning ashen. His hand involuntarily reached for his neck for the locket. Anna couldn't stay silent any longer. The words burst out, bitter, desperate. Forgive my bluntness, but your locket. It looks incredibly like the one my mother had. The only memory of her father, Igor Samov. She said he had the other identical one. He opened his eyes sharply. His gaze was piercing, searching, as if trying to read something in her face and her soul. A long, ringing silence hung between them. The other library patrons became blurred shadows. Only she, he, and this impossible, unbelievable connection through a piece of old silver existed. What is your name? He finally asked, his voice hoarse, cracked. Anna Petrova. He stared at her, and something new dawned deep in his eyes. Not just pain, but recognition, mixed with horror and disbelief. Petrova, he questioned again. And your mother? What was your mother's name? Elena, Anna whispered, feeling tears stream down her cheeks. Elena Petrova. The man recoiled, grabbing the counter for support. Lena, he breathed out, and the word held so much grief and tenderness that Anna's heart ached. He looked at her as if he had seen a ghost. A ghost from a past he believed was buried under the ashes of a burned-down house. The man stared at Anna with a long, disbelieving gaze, as if trying to piece together the fragments of his shattered worldview. His name was Dmitry Volkov, a name that resonated in financial circles, the name of a philanthropist, a recluse, the owner of a vast corporation and a charitable foundation. A legendary figure, subject of rumors, but rarely seen in person. And now this man stood before the modest librarian, Anna Petrova, and his world was collapsing. Elena Petrova, he repeated, tasting the name, as if afraid it would dissolve. She survived that fire? Anna nodded, wiping away tears. Yes, but she lost everything, and she thought you had died. That's what they told her, that you were in the studio that night. Dmitry covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. My God, no, I wasn't there. I was sent on an urgent business trip. My father, he was against our relationship. He considered Lena an unsuitable match. I think he arranged that trip. And then I was told the house burned down. That Lena had died. His voice broke. He pulled a handkerchief from his coat pocket, wiped his face. I looked for confirmation, but it was all so confusing. Official papers, witnesses, everything pointed to her death. I nearly went mad. I believed it. I lived with this for 30 years, with the thought that my Lena died in the fire. He raised his eyes to Anna, filled with unbearable anguish. And the locket. Yes, there were two. I commissioned them from an old master on Nevsky Prospect. One for her, one for me, as a symbol that we would always be together, no matter what. He gently touched his own locket. I've worn it all these years, as a memory, as a perpetual reproach to myself. He paused, gathering strength. Anna, tell me, your mother, when did she pass away? 5 years ago, Anna replied softly. Cancer. She was ill for a long time. Dmitry swayed again. Another loss. Another wound on a heart that seemed incapable of hurting more. Did she know I was alive? Anna shook her head. No. She was certain you died back then, in the fire. She raised me alone. She told me about you, but always as someone the fire had taken. The room in their small apartment seemed even smaller after Dmitry Volkov entered it. He had insisted on walking in a home, learning where she lived, seeing her life. He sat on the old, sagging sofa, such an alien element in these modest surroundings, and looked at the photograph of a young Elena on the wall, the very Lena he had loved and mourned for 30 years. Misha came out of the next room, leaning on his crutches. Seeing the stranger, he stopped in surprise. Anna, who is this? He asked warily. Anna didn't know what to say. How could she explain to her brother that this powerful, almost mythical Dmitry Volkov was possibly? This is Dmitry Sergeyevich, she mumbled. He knew Mom. Volkov rose slowly. He looked at Misha, at his crutches, at his young face bearing features so similar to Elena's, and a new pain appeared in his eyes. Pain for the lost time, for the life unlived beside them. Misha, he said quietly, his voice filled with unfamiliar warm notes. I was a friend of your mother's. An old friend. He turned back to Anna. Anna, I understand this is a shock. For you, for me, it's madness. But if your mother was Elena Petrova, if she had this locket, then you. He couldn't bring himself to say it aloud. The words stuck in his throat. Anna looked at him, a storm of emotions raging within her. Shock, disbelief, resentment toward her mother for her silence, resentment towards this man for his absence, however involuntary. But somewhere beneath the layers of pain, a thin shoot of, what? Hope. Understanding. He was her father. The man with the locket, the man from her mother's stories, the one she thought a dead hero, was alive. And he was here. Dmitry Volkov, the billionaire. Her father. I don't know. Anna whispered, taking a step back. I need time. I can't just like that. I understand. Dmitry nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. I understand completely. I'm not asking for anything. Just let me get to know you. Learn about Lena. About everything I missed. He looked at Misha, at his legs. And let me help. I see your brother needs help. The offer of help landed like a thunderclap. Anna tensed instinctively. Help from this stranger, who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. From a billionaire for whom their problems were merely a minor inconvenience, solvable with a stroke of a pen. Pride, mixed with resentment and distrust, surged within her. We don't need your help, she said, sharper than she intended. We manage on our own. Volkov didn't back down. He looked at her with sad understanding. Anna, I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness or your trust. I can see that you're struggling. I see that Misha needs support that perhaps you can't fully provide right now. Lena, she would have wanted me to help. I know she would. He spoke quietly but persistently. I'm not asking you to call me father. I'm not asking you to forget the years of my absence. I'm only asking you to let me do what I should have done long ago, if only I had known, to fix at least a small part of what was broken. He looked again at Misha, who was listening to their conversation with wide eyes, trying to grasp the essence of the unfolding drama. I know the best doctors in the country, in Europe. I can arrange the most modern rehabilitation for Misha. This isn't a handout, Anna. It's my duty. To Lena. To you. To him. Anna remained silent, torn by contradictions. On one hand, her pride, her habit of relying only on herself, her resentment towards the world and this man. On the other, Misha's face, his hidden hope, his dreams that could be shattered against the wall of poverty. For her brother's sake, could she refuse? For the memory of her mother, who, despite everything, had clearly loved this man deeply? The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words and the weight of 30 lost years. Dmitry didn't press, allowing her the space to process, his gaze resting on the photo of Elena, a silent promise hanging in the air between them.